Now I do have a question, cause y'all piqued my interest. So,
Picture of
Colin Kaepernick, you don't wear the shoes because
it's gone deeper than that.
First of all, that's a mediocre quarterback at best. You're not on a team. No one's drafting you for their or taking you on to play for them because you're not that good.
you think.
Yeah, I don't think he's that good. No.
So I look at it like this. I mean, first of all, have you looked at his numbers?
Yeah, but I mean, he wasn't that good. He was a backup quarterback.
He started out as a backup, like Brady.
What? And let me.
If he got in a system like Brady got into, because if you look at it, he came one pass away from winning the Super Bowl.
Not everybody's the Patriots either.
And that's what I'm saying. So look at the amount of systems that he was in San Francisco. He was in multiple systems in San Francisco.
But not everybody's the Patriots. You know, you're not going to get those shots.
Yep. And if you look at his Super Bowl numbers, though, he has the same amount of. Him and Joe Montana are the only ones to do what they've done in there. But
I'll tell you this, and no offense, and I feel the same way about a lot of things, but my dad is not, well, he is now, but my dad was not born an American citizen.
Okay.
My dad was born in a German camp. So.
Stationed in Germany, too.
So my family came here when my dad was 16.
Mm-hmm.
My dad served in Vietnam twice with the Air Force, not as a citizen.
Mm-hmm.
And my Bubba, which is what we use for grandmothers, my great grandmother, she came here, didn't speak English, but I was just telling a friend yesterday, her brother lived in Canada, and I can remember being little in the car driving to Canada to visit him, and she would try to read all the billboards along the way.
Okay.
She wanted to learn English, and she wouldn't speak Latvian or Russian or German to my sisters and I because she didn't want us to be foreigners.
Gotcha.
So, you know, there's a struggle for everyone, and my Bubba they were white Russian,
mm-hmm.
and so during the war they were wealthy and they had everything stripped of them. They were pushed out of Russia into Latvia, and then from Latvia they were taken to these German war camps.
Okay.
So she had a rough life, and she struggled very much, and yet she was happy. She was glad to be here. She appreciated it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think bad things happen, and slavery is horrible, but you know what? Muslims own slaves. If you want to be offended by something, be offended by it as a whole. Don't join a religion that still believes in that. And great for you, Colin, but you have a white mother and a black father, and you were adopted by an upper middle class white family.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't struggle like these people that come from nothing have struggled. And for you to take offense to police officers and wear the socks that say cops are pigs and everything else, that's a tough job. You can't just, you have to look at a whole situation. Some of these situations, the police were doing the best they could.
But Volando Castile was up this way, right?
No, up here we had, what's that boy's name?
Which one's the one? In Ohio?
We had one right here in Cleveland.
Oh,
the kid.
yeah.
With the pellet gun, the gun in Walmart.
Yeah, the gun.
No, it was in a park.
Yeah, it was.
Oh, you're talking about the 12-year-old?
Yes.
What's his name? Not Trayvon Martin.
No, it's
It escapes me at the moment.
I can't think.
Since his mother is still.
It's the 12-year-old kid.
Yeah, the 12-year-old kid that was almost your size.
Well, see, here's the thing that I had with that. The only problem. Tamir Rice. I'm gonna tell you the problem I had with that. It was a twofold situation for me, and I know we're sidetracking a little bit.
No,
but
go ahead.
Tamir Rice, he shouldn't have took the orange thing off of the weapon, because with that not being on there, it looks like a real weapon. But on the flip side of that,
The training, the tactics were horrible.
Horrible.
you do not
It's
pull
horrible.
up. You do not
No,
pull up on
you stay
back.
You assess the
The
situation.
tactics were horrible in that
Yeah,
situation.
you don't do that. Was terrible.
And the guy who hired that police officer said, "Oh, we never looked into his jacket, his record, to see that they had told him that they had put in his record he should never be a police officer
Well,
because of
That's still
his."
there's a lawsuit now going on now. They're still trying
Yeah,
to
because the previous county he came from, they said that this guy is not fit to be a police officer.
Well, the big problem though is that his trainer was
Pulled
the driver.
is the
Yeah.
driver, yes.
Yeah.
That
Well,
was bad. That
The
was
trainer
bad.
still has his job.
Yeah.
That what's his name? Frank.
That one left a
Yeah.
bad taste
The
in my
the
mouth.
tacticals there were bad.
Yeah, it was terrible.
But the flip side that people didn't know that don't necessarily live here, Tamir Rice was your size and 12 years old.
Yeah.
Okay? Tamir Rice's mother, who's been all over the TV, sued the hell out of everybody that she could, wasn't even raising the boy.
Well, I know he was outside. So, like I said, the problem I seen him, the
I-
video of him outside waving the gun, and
Yeah.
if somebody would have had a real gun, they'd have killed him.
Right.
And so like I said, my thing was I don't think he should have took because those toy guns
Right.
come with an orange stop
Tip.
on,
Yes.
and so he shouldn't have took that off because now it looks like a real gun, but. I also have a problem with the way the police officer.
It was a tactical error.
The tactics, there's no
Right.
question about
Yeah.
that. That was
Right.
terrible.
But I mean, the things that came from that people don't know is his mother, and there's paramedics and doctors at Metro who have testified to this.
Mhm.
His mother stood in the emergency room while they're trying to save her son's life, saying, "Hey, we're getting paid now. We're getting paid now."
Wow.
She had to, before she could go on TV
Mhm.
after he passed away, she had to get her warrants cleared up.
Wow.
She didn't have custody of him, his grandmother did. And, you know, I have a problem with don't play the grieving parent when you weren't the parent.
Yeah.
And I agree, the tacticals on that were horrible, but I just don't think you can coat every police officer with that brush.
And I don't. And so that's my thing.
And it became a huge thing here. I mean, the DOJ came in. We're under a consent decree right now. The crime rate in Cleveland has gone up since they've instituted this consent decree because nobody wants to be a Cleveland cop, so they don't have the enrollment, and their hands are tied.
And I agree with you with with the Colin situation. I don't. The pig socks were a little bit too
I
far
just
from
think-
me, and but the protest. The reason why I don't have a problem with the protest because I fought for his right to be able to do it.
And many
This
people
is-
have, but you know
this
where
is-
it's hard for me? I have stood plainside over 300 times with coffins with flag drapes of people who've been killed serving this country. So
Mhm.
to me, when you disrespect that flag and you disrespect that anthem, it becomes much more personal because
I don't think it should be in sports at all.
right.
I don't think the anthem should be, and I'm only saying that, and I didn't mean to cut you off.
No.
I don't think it should be in
mean-
sports at all, especially because when it comes to the NFL, this is where the hypocrisy comes in for me, is I wouldn't have a problem if you hadn't been taking money from the DOD. They
Right.
took $6.8 million.
Oh, I know
the
they did.
NFL, and I'm saying, but you're supposed to be patriots. You're supposed to, you
I
know,
agree
as a
completely.
veteran, that's where, because my last duty station, I used to have to let my soldiers go on Fridays to go to the food bank. Now, these are soldiers who got to go to the food bank. You got soldiers that are on, some that are on welfare. You know, and so I'm saying to
My
myself,
brother-in-law has been in the Navy 20 years.
Mhm.
When my sister and he got married and they had my two nieces who are now 18 and 15, my sister qualified for welfare and WIC because he didn't make enough money.
And-
When that Coast Guard shutdown just happened this past year,
Mhm.
these people didn't have, if they didn't get that paycheck, they weren't eating that next week. So we did a big, huge food drive and stuff like that, but people don't realize that the military, they think the military makes all this money
Yes.
and stuff, and it's crazy.
Even
But-
daycare is going up on these
Right.
military bases, and so that was the issue that I had. I was like, I understand what you all are saying when it comes. Now, talking about the owners. Okay, I get it because I stand for the flag. I stand for the anthem,
Right.
no matter what. And even last night, they had to tell people, "Hey, stand up," or take your hats off, or this that, because there's a lot of people who still just won't do it. And
well, I mean, you were in the military, you know this, but when you stand plain sight and they bring a young man or a young woman home, and you're standing there with their parents, and how much that flag means to them, and how much that's covering that hero.
Yeah.
I can't. I'll forgive the anthem stuff. I will, but I can't forgive like those two girls in soccer that were whipping the flag and went to go step on it, and their teammate whipped it out from under their feet. You can't do that. You cannot walk on that flag. It means far too much. It's an 18 or 19-year-old kid who died serving their country.
That's how I feel about people burn the flag too.
Oh, me too.
Oh,
well, we just and I mean,
and that's what it was. For
I
me.
said to people a couple weeks ago, about 3 weeks ago now, we brought back the remains of a World War II pilot who died when he was 20 years old. His plane crashed outside of Croatia, and they just found him in September.
Oh wow!
75 years later, we bring him home. He's got that flag covered in his coffin covered in that flag. You know that his parents, they had 2 sons. One of them dies like that. 30 days beforehand, his brother was died and missing. They've never found his brother either. His parents lost both their children in that war, and they bought plots here, 4 plots. They're in 2, and 2 for these boys. And one of those boys finally came home. You know what that flag would mean to his mother? Yeah, you don't get to disrespect that flag. Don't burn it. Don't spit on it. Don't walk on it. If it's not your flag, don't put it in your yard. Fine, but you don't get to use that.
Oh yeah, and so like I said, that's my only thing was the reason
it
why
ticks
I
me
said
off because everyone's like, oh look, the Army with the NFL. Yeah, the Army pays that out of their advertising budget. Are you kidding me?
Here's the thing. Now it's the Army. NFL got the most money,
right.
But MLB got money, the NBA got money, NHL got money. I'm saying to myself, but you can't play both sides of it. If this really means something, if patriotism means something to you, you should have been having these ceremonies on here for free. And it took a congressman to go in and say, I think it was he from Pennsylvania? Somewhere on the East Coast went in and said, whoa, why do we keep approving this money for the DOD to pay to these, sports people, to, these owners to have these events? And when they start to go into it, I think out of the $6.8 million that the NFL received from those, they didn't pay any. They paid like maybe $2 million back, maybe.
Right now.
Yeah, and so.
Oh, it is a horrible thing.
And so with Colin, my thing with Colin was this. It's like, okay, like I said, the pig socks and things, because when he first did that, I made a video. And I said, I'm going to watch to see if what you're doing, if you're really serious about it. Because I had, in the video, I named the list of people that had died from the time he had became the starting quarterback till he wasn't the starting quarterback anymore. And I said, so what about these people? I said, but you know what? I'm giving everybody a chance. And so I've been apologizing for that because Colin is doing some great things. Like, you remember he went up to New York and gave suits to felons who didn't have clothes to go do job interviews. He went into his closet, he gave away all his shoes. Went overseas, helped them get clean water.
Okay, the Nike situation though, let's use that. Betsy Ross was a Quaker. Quakers fought against slavery. They're part of what started the Underground Railroad. They were trying to abolish slavery. Why are you picking on Betsy Ross's flag when she wasn't even... She was trying to prevent slavery.
The 13 colonies it was the Confederate colonies though, right? Those and Confederacy.
But the shoes were to honor. They were the Betsy Ross shoes. This woman was a Quaker. She fought to prevent slavery.
And I understand that, but the symbolism of those 13 colonies, because you think about it like this: when that flag was made, we weren't even considered a man. 3/5 of a man. That's how I look. So. I didn't, like I said, this last situation with the shoes, I mean, like y'all hashed that out somewhere else. But
do you believe that you're owed
reparations,
Reparations?
you'd never be able to get reparations. Everybody would claim it.
Well, here's the thing. I only say this. I only say that yes, only because look how many people the United States have paid back other races. They paid back for the Holocaust, right?
I didn't get any money for the Holocaust.
but they gave reparations for the Holocaust, right?
Some, yes.
Yeah, and they've given some for.
I say in theory I agree with you, because you look at all of these big companies and corporations and so forth, and you can say that a lot of them got their money, their ancestors got their money on the backs of the African American, the slaves at that time. I agree with that, but when it actually comes to actually doing it, how are they going to do it? How are they going to dispense it?
Well, I don't. Like I said, I don't.
Because everybody in the world will be trying.
Well, how did they do it for the Holocaust survivors, or for the families? See, that's what I'm saying.
Probably a lot easier.
Survivors. Survivors were still Holocaust.
Now,
survivors were still alive.
If they agreed to give reparations, should Obama get it? Look at his family.
He's African American though.
He is?
No, he's not.
Where's the American part?
His mom is American,
and she's
white.
She's a white woman.
She's a white woman.
but
She's not.
That's
African,
what I'm saying.
She's
How
not
are you going?
African
Where are you going to
American.
draw the line on that?
So
You'll be
here's-
giving reparations to everybody.
No.
Virtually everybody.
Well, I'm gonna put it like this.
Go ahead.
I'm put it like this. If anybody's African American, it's Obama.
Yes, but
Wow. His
No,
dad's
but-
Kenyan and his mom's
but-
American.
yes, but
but
what's
African American
what
is a
is
made
her-
up word by Jesse Jackson anyway.
That's true. But when you're looking at it, you're basically giving reparations for the hardships and so forth and the disadvantages
slavery.
of slavery. Where does he fit in slavery? He doesn't.
That's a good point.
So I'm saying, why
how
would
do
he
you
get it?
decide? Yeah.
So so hold on.
Why would he get a penny?
That's true. I like that point. So here's the thing. So maybe that's how you do it then. Because I put it like this: however they did it for the Holocaust,
But it
which
was-
didn't even
it's
happen
easier.
on American
But
soil.
the Holocaust was to Holocaust survivors. They were still alive. It wasn't it wasn't generations later.
Yes.
It was those Holocaust survivors, because there's still Holocaust survivors alive now. So that, that's a little different. But I don't know how you would do it. But I also think, I'll tell you something. Yesterday I went to the gas station at Sam's Club. Recently we've had a ton of rain and Sam's Club had flooding and they only have 4 pumps working. So we're all lined up to get in this pump, and this young lady cuts in front of us and blocks the thing. So I get out of my car and I nicely walk up to her window. Hey, you need to go to the back of the line. She rolls down her window, pulls out a box cutter, and goes, "You fucking white bitch, get away from my car."
Oh wow.
And the guy from Sam's come over, he's like, "Ma'am, there's a line. Get away from my car. You and this fucking white bitch." So, if I turned around and said, "You fucking black bitch," or used something, that's a real problem. But her saying that, and there was a group of older African American men there, and I said, "None of you are offended by this. None of you have walked over to her and said stop," because she kept going on and on. I said, "That's part of the problem.
Yeah.
That's part of the problem." So does she deserve any? No, she doesn't.
Yes,
And I'll tell you, in Cleveland, and I don't know, my background's in social work, and I worked for the county for a long time because I'm 5,000 years old. But in Cleveland, and we've been heavily Democratic. We've had a minority mayor for years. Our school system is a mess. I went to a seminar one time, and the gentleman teaching the seminar said, "Go into any Cleveland City School kindergarten room and pull 10 African American boys, kindergarten. 4 of them will graduate high school. 6 of them will not." I've talked to recruiters.
Graduation rate was 19%.
Right.
For African American males.
Right.
19% that actually graduated.
From high school.
So
You go to recruiting offices today that are in the city, and they're like, there's kids who are dying to get into the military, and they can't pass the SFAB.
So here's the thing. And first, I want to digress on something and say that point that Obama point was great. I never heard it. I never thought about it from that way. That's awesome. Second thing is, I used to be a teacher.
Okay.
So this is my problem. So that same way that you're talking about what that young man said, you can go down in Texas, and it's the exact same way. But you have to mix in the Hispanics with it. My one of the reasons why I joined the Army, because I joined the Army late. Like I had already graduated college. I had already had a career. Mm-hmm. I left education to go into the military because I was so, excuse my language and my vernacular, I was so pissed off at the fact that when it comes to, because I don't belong to any political party. Right. I don't associate with the Republicans. I don't associate with the Democrats because at the end of the day, I feel like everybody's out for themselves. So they're all for themselves. So my thing is that I want to remove just the African American male part away from it and just look at education as a whole. Education in America has went down for decades now because the cuts that keep coming from the government. And I said before I left, I told my principal, I said, one of the reasons I'm leaving, I said, because there's so much bureaucracy right now, and I can't understand how they keep cutting the educational budget, and none of these people would be congressmen or senators without a teacher. Right. Like you had to have a teacher somewhere that influenced you to want to be with you. But it doesn't make any sense that I got to allow, because at the time I was teaching computer literacy, it doesn't make any sense that I have to allow the English teacher to use my code so she can make more copies for the kids because she done made so many copies now, and it's the middle of the month. Right. She can't make any more unless she goes out and buys her own paper. You had at that time it had started, but now it's like almost the norm now where these teachers don't even get budgets to do their rooms anymore. Everything comes out of their own pockets. So I definitely understand that.
But I think part of the problem is we have had generation and generation and generations of people on welfare. You've lost the structure of family. What are you laughing at, Joe? You've lost the structure of family. These kids, I mean, I have a friend that's a math teacher in high school. He goes in, the kids won't even tell him his name.
Yeah.
Because, hey, I don't have to. And, every day it's like a war zone. And he's had the security guard tell him, listen, if you make it out of here without one of the kids hitting you or you hitting the kid, call it a good day.
Yeah.
That's not acceptable. We have to change all of that. We have to show kids there's a better life than being a gangbanger or drugs. And it starts with the family. You can't I worked for the County Board of Developmental Disabilities, and for years I was a social worker in the courts for, at the time they used the term mentally retarded offenders. Mm-hmm. Do you know how many kids I had whose cousins or older brother used them as the drug mule because they thought because he had a 40 IQ they wouldn't prosecute him? Wrong, they will. Mm-hmm. And it's got to stop. You've got to do better. You've got to show that there's a better way.
But see, and that's what I was going to say. So, like, part of
maybe take that money everyone wants to get and be paid back for slavery. Maybe take that and start doing things in your community. Start setting up with. You seem like a very intelligent man. I have a friend that's a sergeant first class in the National Guard. He goes out, and he's an African American. He goes out and mentors. Mm-hmm. And I've referred kids to him that I know. I've referred kids to him that are just starting their military career. Those are the kind of things you need to do. Show them LeBron school. There you go. Take the money and do that.
Well, see, here's the thing, and don't get me wrong, I understand, but so I can go out and I can talk to these kids. Let's just say African American kids. I can talk to them till I'm blue in the face. But if I don't have anything talking to them is one thing, showing them is another. No, so right. LeBron is able to do that because of the amount of money that he has, right? I'm going to tell you, I'm just going to use Houston as an example. When the family structure in the African American community start to really go down is when the budget cuts start happening to the after school programs. There's no more after school programs. There's no more.
Instead of this comes from so hard to get reparation money, Work so hard to get that money to go back into your communities and fix your communities.
So that's what I'm about to say. That's what I was gonna say. The
Government.
government keeps cutting the funding for. There's no more. Like if you go in Houston, they just rebuilt a park, Emancipation Park. They had to go and they went and did. But if it wasn't for the people pushing for that for years and trying to get the money to get that park, nothing. So if you go around, like I said, Houston, there's a lot of places that used to be where the community centers, where the African American kids used to go hang out, and you got mentors there who would be like, okay, like, hey, come over here, we're gonna play basketball, or while you're playing foosball, let me talk to you. We're gonna go do this, but there's no more. The funding is dry now,
See,
and so there's no more community projects.
Need to say, okay, we're not going to worry about someone paying me directly. Let's get together and fix our communities.
So let me ask you a question then. Let me ask you a question. With that being said, right? So what if somebody on the Republican or the Democratic side said, I want to let's table the reparations and let's talk about money to start fixing up the communities. So you see what I'm saying? Because the money is gone from the community outreach fund. I want to use that for lack of a better term. I don't know what they call it up in the government. So that's where I see it at. Reparations, I haven't even really gotten into it. I don't really look at it like that because there's, like you say, I'm in agreement with you that there's so much more that could be done with the money. Like another thing I put, there used to be a time in the African American communities where after school there was reading programs, but those books and everything that went into that, the funding to even pay for the person, all that got cut. So now when these kids get out of school now, especially these latchkey kids, these ones who get home before the mom gets home,
right,
and got to take care of the brother and the sister. It used to be a time where they could go to the community center and play, or they can go to the community center, do their homework, this and another. But now the government has cut so much funding, and that's why I say I don't belong to any political party, because when you start saying, well, look at what the Republicans done. I was like, well, look at this is where African Americans get mad at me at. I said, let's stop right here. I was like, one, you're already mad that I'm not a Democrat. I get it. I don't care. I said, you keep saying, look at what the Republicans are doing. I said, go and look at that bill. Go look at that bill that was voted on and look at the names. It's Republicans and Democrats on that bill.
But people don't want to do that.
It doesn't fit the narrative, but it doesn't fit the narrative on both sides.
You know
either.
where you were saying it used to be. You know what the used to be, what caused the used to be? 9/11. When all the money started going into Homeland Security. Now all the money that used to be used for other things is now going in all these different phases of security. That's where all that extra money that we used to have went.
And you know what's so funny about that too? Is that we're talking about reparations, we're talking about Holocaust. Do you know that when the towers were attacked, there are 9 families that were running, 9 undocumented illegal families that were running, and I'm not talking about Hispanic either. I'm talking about from the Middle East that were running stores and different types of things in the towers. They're millionaires now. They don't even have social security numbers, but they're millionaires. And it's like, well, wait a minute. Well, how did they get this money? It's like the government gave it to them for their loss. And I'm saying to myself, wait a minute, what? And so, from I have an issue with the government, and when it should be more about the people. And I said the reason why I don't get off into it a lot with the political parties is because at the end of the day, they're about self-preservation and how much
self-preservation of the system.
Yep.
They want to be able to keep doing it where they can argue over the dollars, but they're getting the dollar.
And I told somebody this last week. I said, in Washington, it's not about who has the most money. It's not it's about the power. And I said, the person who has the power is the one who's owed all the favors. Right. If you owe me a favor, if I pass this bill and now you owe me one, and now you owe me one, now you owe me one, so now all y'all owe me one, I'm the most powerful man now, because I can come to you and say, hey, you remember when
Right. Of course.
Yeah, and that's
the most-
all it's about.
That's why I think that there should be term limits.
Yes.
It's like we're supposed to, you go in there and spend your time and get out. You don't make this career business. It's killing us.
Yep, exactly.
There should be term limits for everything. That's what killed Cleveland. There's no term limits for these jackal mayors either.
It's
But do you remember when Cleveland had one of the best school systems in the country? When I went through it, Cleveland was a model, and you had educators from all over the country were coming in to see
How Cleveland was doing.
did.
Wisconsin used to
So when I
was
went
like
to-
that too,
so
right?
When I went to the service and I come back here, I said, well, what happened? I mean,
It's
go
just,
from the top
it's one of
to
those
right at the
things. I
bottom.
think everybody's so busy being angry and so busy. You owe me, and I was in the 4th grade and I went to Catholic school, and some kid came up to me one day and he's telling everyone about slavery and like you white people own slaves. I went home crying to my grandmother, who mind you has a thick Russian accent. I'm like, Grandma, we own slaves, and my grandma's like, no, we didn't. Not us. But the flip side, years later, that people don't realize, and I think that's where you have to be kind of more open to. You aren't the only ones who suffer. I exist today because my grandmother at 16 years old was raped by a German soldier.
Oh wow.
That's how my dad came to be. My grandma was 16 when she gave birth to him. That's how I exist today. And it's one of those things that you can be angry about and think life is unfair, or you can say, I'm here, I have a purpose, and move on. My dad will never know who his family was. He will never, he has questions, but it's one of those things where you move on and,
Well, I'm gonna say this and then I gotta go catch my
Yeah.
flight. I always I make my excuse my language again. I piss my black friends off as much as I piss my
Right.
white friends off, only because I tell them, I was like, listen, if we're gonna talk, then let's just talk about the truth. I don't push your propaganda from your Democratic Party or
Right.
your Republican Party on me. Let's just talk. And at the end of the day, I'm gonna tell you. At the end of the day, this is the statement that always gets them. They be like, well, how do you feel about the president? No. They say, how do you feel about Trump? I said, you mean President Trump? It's like, well, he ain't my president. I was like, you live in the United States. He is your president. And I said, at the end, I don't care personal feelings or whatever. I don't know him personally. I only know what I
Right.
see here. And, I know how the media works. And so he does some good things. He does some bad things. But at the end of the day, he's still my president.
Right.
He's President
there's nothing
Trump.
you can do to change that.
At all. So until I said, and if you want it, I said, there's only 2 requirements: be 35 years old and be an American citizen. If you want to be president, run for president, but you can't because your credit's bad or you got too many girlfriends, or
Because your skeletons are coming out.
Exactly.
But it's just an interesting thing, like, and I know that sometimes I live in this Pollyanna world where I look at it. I don't have children, and I look at kids and I think, what a disservice we're doing to them. And when you have kindergartners and elementary school kids who have to struggle just to make it, no wonder by the time they get to high school they think it's easier to sell drugs.
Yeah.
I mean, it's quick money. And so I'm always like, please, let's take the money. Okay, stop fighting. We need to fix this. And I volunteered at reading and tutoring things, and it's just sad.
Well, when I come back the next time, because I will be
Yeah.
back, can we talk? Because if I'm not mistaken, this is Cuyahoga.
Cuyahoga County.
Weren't they just in the news
Oh.
like 2-3 weeks ago for
well.
like a couple of like it's some things going on with the law enforcement,
Listen,
right?
The FBI could spend months here arresting everybody.
I was like, wow.
I was going to show you League Park again. The turn of the 20th century. 19th, I'm getting.
I'm Mike Wilbon. Same time tomorrow, Knuckleheads. You can get the podcast on the app or Apple Podcasts.
Big Sarge Sports shout out, world's oldest millennial.